Hi, myself Vaishnavee, Assistant Professor in the Department of Information Technology from SNS College of Engineering. Now let us see about the relational model, like relational query languages. So before understanding the relational query languages, let us see the analogy. Like I want to have a coffee. So I'm assigning the task that sharing a copy with two people, X and Y. So I am all providing all the required resources for making a cup of coffee. And the people X and Y, so I'm into the X, I'm just telling him to prepare coffee. To the person Y, I inform each and every step how to prepare Y. So now we know the way how X and Y prepare the coffee. To the X, I said what is required, and to the Y, what is required and how it is required. So with this, let us see the relational query languages. How this analogy is related to the topic. So now see the relational query languages. So let us know what is query language. A query language is a language in which user requests for information from a database. So database only going to say all our data. So whenever we need the data from the database, so we must know what language is used to retrieve or access the data. It is nothing but a query language. So query language is nothing but a language in which a user requests data from a database. It is said to be a higher level than that of standard programming languages. Why it is higher level? Because when we withdraw money from ATM, we will be obviously going to the ATM machine. There will be a user interface. We will interact with the system through that user interface only. So that user interface only written in high level programming language. That all our data is stored in the backend is database, but we're going to retrieve the data from the front end, which is written in a programming languages. In that programming language code only, we're going to write the query language code. So already the programming language is higher language. We are going to write the query higher than the standard programming language. For example, we're going to retrieve the data from the account balance is embedded in the programming language only. That's why this says that higher level than that of standard programming language. And basically, there are two categories of query language. The first is procedural query language and non-procedural query language. Let's first see about the procedural query language. A sequence of operations on the database executed in the database, and these sequence operations are just to compute the desired result. In simple terms, we're going to write a query. The query going to carry the sequence of operations on the database and give the desired result. This is the job of a query language. So because we are going to request the information from the database, we are going to supply some queries. So what is the difference between procedural and non-procedural query language? Both are query language, but both the queries the database will be respond. So what is the difference between the procedural and non-procedural language is that in procedural query language, we are going to write a query and what data is required from the database, how to retrieve those data. In procedural query language, we are going to write the query. That query is going to get information, that is what is required and how to retrieve those data. This is about procedural query language. Now, you can correlate this with the analogy that with two people X and Y, and what we expected from X, what is required. To the Y, what we instructed, what we require and how to get it. So this is the analogy between the procedural query language and non-procedural query language. So this procedural query language is like Y in an analogy. For example, what data is required and how to retrieve those data. So this is the procedural query language. So the example for procedural query language is relational algebra. Non-procedural query language, the user describes only the desired information. It means we're going to say what data is required. No need to describe how to retrieve those data. If we instruct how to retrieve those data, then it is procedural query language. Now we're going to see about non-procedural query language, which focus only on what data is required, not focus on how to retrieve those data. So this is related to the X in analogy. For the example of non-procedural query language is relational calculus, lacking the syntactic rigor of commercial language and fundamental techniques for extracting data from the database.